The bubonic plague is one of history's deadliest viruses. Some historians believe that the bubonic plague can be traced back to the 5th century. The plague is so deadly that if it goes untreated, it has a 90% death rate. People who are infected has just a little over a week to live. The plague in modern times have been kept under control for the most part, but it wasn't always this way. The bubonic plague was so deadly that during the 14th century, it killed an estimated 50 million people in Asia, Europe, and Africa. In fact, the plague almost wiped out all of Europe, killing 60% of its population. Historians called it the Black Death. In 1910, the Black Death devastated the world once again, including South Africa. An evangelist by the name of John G. Lake ministered right in the middle of the most infected region in South Africa. So many had died in these regions, there wasn't enough help to remove and bury all of the dead bodies laying in the streets, hospitals, and houses. It got so bad that the government had to pay nearby locals to help. And even then, most were too afraid to even come near the infected due to transmission. John G. Lake was one of the few religious leaders who offered his help, and he did it without pay. Lake would enter some of the most horrid homes where the smell of sickness and death permeated the airways to the point of exhaustion. He and his team carried out dead, infected bodies and oftentimes buried them in massive graves because the count was so many. Lake's faith was so strong during this time that he had no fear of ever catching the virus. The fact that he was carrying so many virus-filled corpses and yet didn't get sick got the attention of medical circles throughout the region. A doctor once asked, "What have you been doing to protect yourself?" Lake's response was, "I believe that as long as I keep my soul in contact with the living God, so that his spirit is flowing into my soul and body, that no germ will ever attach itself to me, for the spirit of God will kill it." Lake asked the doctor to do an experiment on his body with the virus of dead corpses. The doctor took the foam from the lungs and put it under a microscope. Under a microscope, the doctor discovered a host of living germs. Lake asked the doctor to spread the foam on his hand. After the doctor looked at the virus on Lake's hand, he was astonished that every last germ had suddenly died. He asked Lake how was this even possible. According to Lake said that that's the law of the spirit of life in Christ Jesus. When a man's spirit and body are filled with the presence of God, it oozes out of the flesh and the pores and it kills the germs. If there was any doubt found in Lake when that virus was on his hand, he could have easily died within a week's time. Lake would go on to convert 1 million souls to the Lord in a span of 5 years. 100 years later, Lake is still considered to be the most influential missionary in South Africa history and one of the most unusual healing evangelists ever. Until next time, if you want more content, like the video and subscribe to the channel.